One of the records I've heard so far from people here in Williamson County is going on 30 hours without power. Now, I'm going to read some of these messages that I've been getting on email and on social media. We've already seen an outpouring of support earlier this week here at the Children's Medical Group for Dr. Dodson and her family. Now there's a network of friends and neighbors who are placing ribbons like these all over town. More than 60% of Texas's ICU beds are being used to treat COVID-19 patients, which is considered an extreme stress. You can still see that active police presence here right now. Police are still working the scene, collecting evidence and anything they can about this shooting. Look at how much this snow has hardened just after it fell a couple hours ago. And while the snow has stopped here, you can see that it's just covering about everywhere. Those 6 bills that have now overcome a major step in the path towards becoming law have officially passed in the Texas Senate. A Good Samaritan was walking along this block on Rotherham Drive when she heard a small child crying from the community mailboxes. And this is the same thing that we're seeing even on trees here in downtown Fredericksburg. You can see it kind of glistening. This will be the only one of 4 planned drop-off sites in Travis County that will be open starting tomorrow. That vigil is happening right now. I'm going to step to the side so you can get a closer look. Right now they're doing a prayer service in honor of Heidi Broussard and her family. The focus of another emergency item this session that is aimed at keeping dangerous criminals behind bars. Reporting live, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News. Its pages depict the life of a transgender boy learning about his identity at a young age.
If this resource was around when I was a kid and I had been exposed to this, it would have been life-changing.
But the children's book, Call Me Max, hasn't been as well received by some Eanes ISD families after a teacher at Forest Trail Elementary shared the book with 4th grade students.
We had some parents then came to us and said, why was this shown? Is this in your curriculum? Where is this in your curriculum? It wasn't.
Some parents telling the district the decision to share the material was inappropriate.
It is absolutely age appropriate for children at that age to be having those discussions. It was alarming to hear the way the other adults in the community were reacting.
Eanes ISD parents like Yvonne Adams have since taken a stand in support of the book and LGBTQ families who may be feeling marginalized because of the negative reaction from parents and the district's response, which stated in part that the material was not, quote, appropriately reviewed by the district.
The teacher introduced it, and it wasn't under a locally adopted curriculum. We hadn't gotten there yet. Superintendent
Tom Leonard says the district has been working with a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant over the last 8 months to cultivate a more inclusive community at Eanes ISD. With that is a goal to establish a more inclusive and diverse curriculum. But Leonard says the district has not reached that point in the process.
We know it is critically important that we meet children's needs. But that doesn't mean, just because it's critical that we meet those needs, that we don't have another responsibility to thoughtfully review our curriculum and partner with parents. They're not mutually exclusive.
I think the argument that the school district has made and that some parents are making is a dodge.
Joe Ivester says the controversy hits close to home as her son Jeremy discovered he was transgender while he was a student at Eanes ISD.
I think it's absolutely appropriate that kids are allowed to see, and it's not something taboo. And I think 5-year-old me could have heard that story and said, that's me.
Jeremy hopes the district sees that children discovering their own identity today need stories like Call Me Max. A community group of parents called Eanes for Equity has since created a petition calling for all children to feel safe and supported by the district.
So while this isn't part of the curriculum, it's part of what we as a district, Eanes as a district, says that they teach, which is social emotional learning and how you treat one another and how we accept one another and how every child is accepted and seen.
Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News. In the middle of downtown Dripping Springs.
I usually just started from like noon to maybe sunset, so around 7.
Stands 20-year-old Nifa Kaniga.
Racism doesn't stop because of the heat, so.
With an invitation to ask anything.
It's uncomfortable talking about race. It's uncomfortable having to put yourself out here. But that's why I put on the sign, make yourself uncomfortable.
As national Black Lives Matter protests sparked by the death of George Floyd continue to happen in major cities, Kaniga wanted to do something different to help more people understand why.
Have something local because, this is a very, white conservative town.
For Kaniga,
Many people have asked me that, what's up with the All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter.
no question is too uncomfortable.
Nobody said, only Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter more than white lives. We're saying, when Black lives are taken unjustly and nothing's being done about it, it sends the sentiment that Black lives don't matter.
And he knows not everyone will hear what he has to say.
Everybody has their opinion for a reason. And I think having empathy and, just trying to understand, where are you coming from in this point of view and, hearing their point of view.
But he says he's surprised many in his community have come to ask him tough questions about race. Some joining him to keep the movement going.
It's 2020. We're supposed to have an open mind about things, we're raising a new generation. I want my kids to want to love like everybody. I don't see any reason not to.
Kaniga believes if more people are willing to listen to different ideas and vote, this national spark for change will have a lasting impact.
We have to be uncomfortable if we want change.
In Dripping Springs, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News. It's at this community mailbox on Rotherham Drive where Austin police say a Good Samaritan found a female baby lying on the ground. Now, Austin police are still trying to search for the identity of the mother and are hoping that anyone with information will come forward.
I have no clue who it is or why they did what they did, but I'm gonna do my best to try to find out who it was.
People living along Rotherham Drive are seeking answers after Austin police found a baby abandoned near a community mailbox.
Literally gives me goosebumps when you say that.
Police say it was around 7:35 Tuesday morning when a Good Samaritan initially discovered the baby crying by the mailbox. Aaliyah Schertz says she and her son passed by the same area roughly an hour before.
Did not see or hear anything that sounded like a baby or a young woman potentially carrying a baby.
Police say the baby was less than 12 hours old when they found her, and they do not believe the child was born in a medical facility.
And we can assure everybody that the child is safe, the child is well.
But police are worried about the mother's health and well-being, given information they learned from the baby's medical exam.
A child has come into this world, and we know absolutely nothing about the family. Our radar is, can we find out who this mother is to make sure that they're okay?
While neighbors wonder why someone left a child, Schertz believes there's more to the story.
That maybe the mother was under duress in some sort of way or was endangered or knew this was going to be the safest place for whatever reason. And I just hope that the mother's doing okay as well.
Today, Austin police did not specify whether they're pursuing any charges in this case, as it is still under investigation. They say their priority is the mother's well-being and health and safety. Now, again, Austin police are looking for anyone with information to call their tip line. Reporting live in Northeast Austin, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News. When it comes to moving the needle in Central Texas,
we kind of say, let's get you poked. That's our little unofficial slogan.
Sometimes a dream and a little bit of coaching can make all the difference.
Everyone keeps calling us angels, and I feel like that's a little strong and maybe a little too much pressure.
For nearly 3 weeks, BK resident Kendra Wright and a group of more than 65 volunteers in Austin have joined forces to create Kendra's COVID Coaches, a group dedicated to helping Central Texans access COVID-19 vaccines.
We have a spreadsheet of resources that has all of the places to get vaccinated, as well as tips on getting vaccinated at each place.
Using WhatsApp to communicate with residents, coaches also provide real-time information on which providers have vaccines available.
But we really want to help people in vulnerable populations, Spanish speakers, people over 65, and teachers.
Enter Daniel Aramillo, who stumbled across information about Kendra's COVID Coaches.
That kind of trigger for me to reach out to Kendra and offer if she wanted to translate some of the information to Spanish because I'm a native speaker.
Now the group has vaccine resources translated in both English and Spanish, something Aramillo believes will help bridge a gap in vaccine access.
This is going to make it a little easier for them. So that was just the motivation.
And with vaccine providers now prioritizing access to teachers,
that changed everything for us.
Volunteers like Amanda Boardman are working on getting educators coached and collaborating with vaccine providers to improve access.
Being able to give back to our teachers just a small piece of what they've given to our families and to our kids.
A collaboration of people and missions that are not just moving access to a needle, but also lifting spirits in the process.
It's very hard to explain the gratitude people have.
In Bee Cave, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News.